a little below 30, and an empty concert hall is at 25. Here's an acoustic study of the community wind project for one turbine, Wellpeat, Massachusetts. Tech environment, certified by Peter Goldberg, the acoustic consultant. Empty theater or a library is 40 decibels. Rural nighttime is 30, quiet bedroom 30, and an empty concert hall is 25. Acoustic study of UD Gamesa wind turbine project, Louis, Delaware, done by Tech Environment, certified by Peter Goldberg, acoustic consultant. Empty library or theater is 40 decibels, quiet bedroom at night is 30, and 25 is an empty concert hall. I have this ad from the newspaper that says the fact that wind turbines at their maximum noise level will be quieter than a library. This is the only sound average chart I could find was from the Blissfield Wind Energy Project of 45 decibels for a library or empty theater. So this is the only one, and so I'm trying to figure out why we're having a conflicting report from their consultant comparatively to his decibel averages from 40 to 45. And I guess that's it on my stuff on decibels. So I mean, if it's 40 decibels is what their acoustic consultant's saying, and I've heard other ones is 30 and 40 and everything, that we have to, I think my personal feeling is really look at 40 decibels day and night, because basically they're saying that the fact is that a quiet library is 40 decibels, and to be below that, and they're guaranteeing that it's going to be below according to their ad in the newspaper, and I think we should really hold them to that, because if they're putting that out there, that should be kept, and seeing as how their acoustic consultant says 43 times, it should be, and plus with all the other information from 30 to 40 decibels with a quiet library in the average home, it should be kept lower than that, especially with the 25 decibels that the ISO says that for a good night's sleep is, the International Standards Organization. You go in at 25 and they're saying 15 decibels will drop from the outside of the house like the World Health Organization says. So if ISO is saying 25 with an open window, I think ISO, we go with the low number because that's the International Standards Organization, and that's what everybody around here deals with, you know, ISO 9001, ISO this, it's everything else. So, I mean, that's just my suggestion, but, you know, from the information I've found. And there was one thing here in the American Wind Energy Siting Handbook, I think I had something on. I mean, you want to go next? I got some more stuff here, so if you want to go for a little bit.
Yeah, I can go.
I probably won out my welcome.
No, you didn't wear out your welcome. Give me a lot of documents.
Oh, I highlighted them, so it's easy to type.
Yeah. Okay, what I did is I went out and I pulled a little bit of information off of Michigan government sites. The first series of documents, I actually looked at two of them. They're very similar. One was called Michigan Siting Guidelines for Wind Energy Systems, and the other was called Sample Zoning for Wind Energy Systems. The sample zoning document was dated April of 2008. The Michigan Siting Guidelines were dated March of 2007. One actually supported the other as part of this development. Okay, so the documents were published by the Energy Office, Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Growth. The guidelines were prepared by Professor Robert Fletcher and Daniel Alberts, who was a graduate student from Lawrence Technological University. The guidelines were developed with input from Michigan Wind Working Group. However, the members of the Wind Working Group have not endorsed the guidelines. That's stated on the document's introduction page. The documents state these guidelines have been developed with the intention of striking an appropriate balance between the need for clean renewable energy resources and the necessity to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. The documents define on-site use and utility grid wind energy systems. On-site use are sized to primarily serve the needs of a home, farm, or small business. Utility grid wind energy systems are sized to provide power to wholesale or retail customers using the electric grid, transmission, and distribution grid to transport and deliver the electricity. Sample zoning documents made a very clear statement on the second page. It was on page 2 of 11 in the section titled "Zoning Does Not Exist." So here's what the statement read. Zoning does not exist. If this is being done in a township, village, or city where zoning does not exist, then it is not possible to adopt these regulations concerning wind energy systems without first adopting zoning. And the reason I highlight that is because we found out when we had Ron Richards here, the attorney from Foster Swift, that Michigan townships without zoning can enact police power ordinances to regulate wind turbine activities. Not necessarily regulating the land use, but regulating the activity itself. So I took exception to that comment that was in the document. The document recommends that wind project developer perform wind site assessments and submit certain information with applications for special land use permits. The information includes applicant information, a site plan, copy of the portion of the applicant's lease with the landowner granting authority to install the Met Tower, and requiring the applicant to remove all equipment and restore the site after completion of the wind site assessment. Proof of the applicant's public liability insurance. Okay, prior to the installation of a utility grid wind energy system, an application for the special land use permit shall be filed with the local government and shall include the following: applicant information, project description, a site plan, proof of public liability insurance, copies of written waivers from neighboring property owners, copy of sound modeling and analysis report, certification that applicant has complied with or will comply with all applicable state and federal laws and regulations, copies of all such permits and approvals that have been obtained at the time of application, visual simulations of how the project will look from all 4 viewable angles, copy of environmental impact analysis, copy of avian and wildlife impact analysis, copy of shadow flicker analysis, documentation that identifies the type and quantity of all materials used in the operations of all the equipment, including but not limited to all lubricants and coolants. They had in here the manufacturer's MSDS documents. Copy of the decommissioning plan and description of the complaint resolution process. These are items that are in the sample zoning guidelines where they're asking the wind energy companies to provide to the local governments. This document also discusses property setback and recommends 1 times the height of the turbine to the blade tip from an adjacent non-leased properties, including public rights-of-way. At an Ogden Township Board meeting, Doug Dumering, the Exelon Wind Project Manager, acknowledged that based on lessons learned from utility-scale wind turbine installations in Huron County, in the Thumb area, that the setback distance needs to be increased to avoid high volumes of complaints. Great Lakes Wind and Exelon are recommending a setback distance of 1,320 feet. At that point, I got a question for the Great Lakes or Exelon currently has projects starting back up in the Thumb. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I'm John Bullock. I'm from Exelon.
Hi. Yeah,
Are you Exelon, Winter, or Wind Connect?
I'm from Exelon Wind now.
Huh?
I'm from Exelon Wind now.
All right, because I knew you as RMT Wind Connect before. I just wanted to know you've left. Okay, I just want to make sure that we're not crossing, because last time I talked to you were RMT Wind Connect at your last meeting. Okay, just verifying.
Have a question if your group would be able to provide to our committee. Site plans of the existing wind installations up there in Huron County correlated with the recorded complaints, just so that we can have an idea of, you know, that would give us some type of a visual look to see, you know, what was the distance. And if I remember right, I think there was a complaint log that was maintained up in Huron County. I think this is what I've seen, or that some way they have a way of knowing where the complaints were and sizing, you know, the distance between the turbine and the complainant and what the complaint was. I was just wondering if we could get information like that, just
Well, you know, I'm not certain if there's a complaint log like you're speaking of. I mean, I think the nature of the comments that Doug had mentioned previously were that they had, you know, Exelon Wind had received some complaints on the Michigan Wind 1 project near Ubly, and that project was designed with setbacks from residences of 1,000 feet. As compared with the Michigan Wind 2 project that Exelon Wind's currently developing very near there in Sanilac County, where the minimum setback from residents has been increased to 1,320 feet, consistent with the increase that's been applied in Huron County.
Are they using the same size turbines? Are they using
Yes,
the 390s up there, or are they using the 474s?
They're using the V100s exactly as the turbines we discuss here.
Okay, so they're going up in size to move it back 320 feet, because those are only 390 up in the thumb at this time, and so you guys aren't using the same turbines, so you've increased it 320 feet, is what you're saying. And just to go and make the V100s, which are approximately close to 100 feet taller, I mean, what I'm saying is that they're not the same turbines, so you misspoke, obviously.
We're talking about the same turbines at Michigan Wind 2, the project with 1,320-foot setbacks, and the setbacks that we have discussed here, and the turbines that we've discussed.
Right, but the difference is why did you move it back 1,000 feet? Was it to accommodate the extra 100 feet in turbine height? Is that why? Because you had complaints at 1,000 feet, and now you're saying you're only moving them back 320 feet to go and you know, to make up for that 100-foot and more height, which actually when it hits the inversion layer, which is taller, and the lower relative winds on the ground, which should go and make that, go and power that wind, the top of it, like wind shear, and force that down so it may be louder actually, and you're only compensated for 320 feet from the 1,000-foot setbacks that you guys had with the 390 footers, right?
I wouldn't say that the additional 320 feet is due to the height of the wind turbine. It's
Is it
not
due to the
linked
noise
that.
complaints?
It's due to what we think is the appropriate level for noise modeling of the turbines and setback.
Well, why didn't you move, but why didn't you go back with 390 footers at the 320 feet to minimize those complaints and stuck with those if you have enough wind up there to run the 390 footers?
The turbines have not been selected based on the setbacks, and the setbacks have not been selected based on the turbines.
Well, why aren't you using the same
turbines-
390-foot turbines if you've got enough wind up there to produce the wattage that you guys want? And they're basically, because Doug Doomering said the ones we're here are going to be basically the same megawatts as what we're doing down here, and that's what he said in front of Larry Gould just a month ago. So if they're similar in that, then why wouldn't you go back with the 390 footers that are shorter, move them back 320 feet, this is being hypothetical, and move them back 20 feet so you don't have as many noise complaints if they have 320 feet instead of adding 100 feet, just out of curiosity.
The wind turbines have a similar nameplate capacity, as these are 1.8 megawatt wind turbines, but they're an improved technology for wind turbines, so while the capacity looks similar, 1.8 megawatts, they'll operate, they'll be utilized to a more fuller extent due to the modern equipment.
Right,
So
but the noise...
that's the main reason that we switched to different turbines.
Well, why didn't you move it back?
Always
Because of, why didn't you move back farther away then? Because actually your hub height is the same, similar, and a similar hub height, but the similar height in the two, because it gets up higher in the atmosphere. If you're producing, if you go only 100 feet higher, why wouldn't you have moved it back farther? Because you had noise complaints from 1,000 feet at 390 feet, and now you've just went and increased the size, which when you increase the size of anything, I don't care what your technology is, it doesn't take only a few years since you've installed those to go and decrease that sound level that much by only moving it 300 feet to add 100 extra feet to it so it can go and potentially hit the higher loft winds, and there's lower down there because you're basically the same height off the ground as what the other turbines are, similar. And with that, because of that, you're going to have more of a chance of that extra wind up high, forcing those turbine blades down quicker and making more of a noise issue.